Good morning, Philippines. And quite often I do my videos inside where there's no background noise, but today I thought it might be worthwhile for you to hear how noisy it can be in the neighborhood. Constant dogs barking, and later on the roosters will start at it, kids shouting. It's a noisy place. And this one is about some of the inconveniences of living in the Philippines. Okay, so there's a lot of bloggers out there telling you how wonderful it is to live in the Philippines, and others trying to warn you that it's full of scammers. And it's neither, it's somewhere in the middle. But there are some crazy things that make absolutely no sense to a Westerner that you're going to find when you come here. And if I could just go over a few of them, it might help you bolster your resistance or resilience when you get here and have to deal with these issues. One of my pet peeves is people driving around without headlights. Daytime, nighttime makes no difference. You'd be driving along the highway and there'd be some guy in a motorized tricycle with no headlight on. Now, in his mind, he views the light as energy and an expense, and he thinks that he's burning more gas if he turns his headlight on. So he wants to save some gas money, so he leaves his headlight off. Now, that in itself kind of sounds pretty loony, but you know, the fact is that there's not even reflectors in a lot of these vehicles. And if you're a Filipino who says, oh, I can't afford a reflector, next time you're going through the trash and you come across an old CD, just tie it back to the back of your tricycle. It's very highly reflective and could save your ass in a motor vehicle accident. So yeah, now that is one of the hazards of driving in the Philippines, and that's why I don't say I don't drive at night, but I prefer not to. Another thing you're going to see in some of the tourist spots, and you'll be shaking your head, is some employee will spend all day raking the beach. When it's low tide, they'll start raking the beach and picking up all the crap. And then, when they're finished, they'll put it in a big pile off to the side and leave it there. Or, even crazier, is they'll dig a hole in the sand and bury it, thinking that it's now gone. Of course, we all know the next tide comes in and flushes it all out, and it all floats away to some other site. So, yeah, raking beaches only to bury the debris, and there's a lot of it here in the Philippines. Partly because burning waste, especially plastic waste, is illegal, and so a lot of people don't do it, but some do, and there's a terrible stink when they do. There's other countries in Southeast Asia who've harnessed the energy of plastic recyclables and non-recyclables and burned them for energy recovery, something that maybe the Philippines might want to learn. Now, another thing you're going to find if you're doing any kind of construction work is trades leaving a mess. I just got a drop in by the local security officer on behalf of the manager that my neighbor's complaining about water coming into their kitchen next door, claiming it's from my site. Well, regardless of whether it is or not, I know for a fact that the guys that have been working here have been continually propping up scaffolding and the rest of it on the roof of this guy's kitchen. So if there's a penetration, yeah, and I've warned them about it, but they don't listen. I found senseless damage. Somebody dropped a can of paint and let it leak and fall open. They just leave a mess everywhere. And I guess they figure It's good enough for them, it's good enough for you, so take it or leave it. And then, if you're a white Anglo-Saxon Protestant who's used to his your roast beef and Yorkshire pudding or hamburgers or whatever, there are meals that you eat with your hands, but for the most part, meals are served with knives, forks, and spoons. We'll try and find a knife here in the Philippines, unless it's intended for killing somebody. Knives are few and far between. You'll find forks and spoons galore, and even chopsticks, but knives are hard to come by. So, if you're coming here and you want a good set of cutlery, I suggest you bring along some extra dinner knives. And then they'll use water uh, that will be unfiltered to make ice cubes sometimes in these restaurants. So you have to make sure that the ice you got comes from purified water. So make a point of asking that when you come here. And the restaurants are starting to get a little bit better, having been exposed to Western manners. They're starting to learn that service water should come with a meal at the beginning of the meal. Um, they have a superstition of not clearing anybody's plates until everybody's finished. So your food plate will sit there until everybody's done. So you might want to be aware of that. And the whole focus of this country is manpower over mechanization. It's it's a place where unions don't have to prevail because the government's already sensitive to the fact that they want their people employed and out of the way. So you'll have a hard time bringing in things like chainsaws or metal detectors or anything that's going to make the job easier. Um, yeah, they want to focus on manpower, and that's why you'll have a security guard at every bank, 7-Eleven, and grocery store. Guy sitting around with a gun. I can't recall the last time a bank was robbed here in Cebu, but it must have been a long time ago because it sure doesn't hit the headlines. The other thing you're going to be aware of is this whole hype about filial responsibility, that you're supposed to respect your elders. And publicly, you'll notice that in the banks, people will clear the way. You'll get a special pass at banks. The banks here actually do treat their customers better than they do in the West. You don't line up here. They give you a seat to sit in and they call your number. So there's no hanging around on 2 feet waiting for the guy in front of you to hurry up. But the flip side of the filial responsibility and what sits with families is it's, for the most part, only your family. I find that amongst a number of Filipinos that there's this competitive thing, family to family. And it translates all the way up into the political system where families and tribes and dynasties have taken over positions of senator all the way to the president's palace, where the names repeat themselves. And it's not unusual, I mean, for that to happen in the West, but it gravitates all the way down to the streets, where people will clean their doorstep, but very few will take the time to go across and pick up a wrapper or something that somebody else laid on it. It's like it was somebody else's job. And maybe they've been indoctrinated that to do so could be taking a job away from somebody. But as a result, you'll find that litter is rampant here. People just leave junk everywhere. So, yeah, you want to make sure that you look out for yourself and your family first here before all else. Now they'll have family days through your school, and it kind of stretches out from there. You know, like different community organizations are part of a greater good, and so you'll have your church, you'll have your barangay, and then you'll have your region. People, I've said this before, from the Visayas want little or nothing to do with people from Mindanao or Luzon. It's very tribal, and don't forget there's over 144 different languages and more tribes that are nestled amongst these islands. They're lucky to settle on a language, a common language, which is English for the courts. I guess because it was a neutral language that nobody spoke, they decided to institute that years ago in the 19th century when the Spanish were kicked out and the Americans came in. The other thing too that it gets on my nerves is hygiene here. And this stretches everywhere from your dining room table to your hospital. When my wife had a baby, I went to wash my hands. There was no soap in the washroom, certainly no paper towels or anything like that, and no hot water. So you'll see that. And people will share from a common bowl, a bowl of rice. I see the kids, just come in there, grab the serving spoon, fill it full of rice, and shove it in their mouths, and shove it back in the bowl and walk away. And the adults say nothing. Oh, they're kids, whatever. But talk about a great way to spread disease. Now, having said all this, it's not all that bad in the Philippines. In 1991, the poverty rate was sitting around 28.5%. In 2021, 28.5% was the people who attained middle class standards of living. And in 2021, 39.8% attained middle class standard of living. And a middle class is anyone who is exceeding the poverty line index, which is 12 times the poverty line. So if you're making between 18,000 and 109,000 pesos a month, you're considered to be middle class in the Philippines. Now, if you contrast with the West, in 1971, 61% of Americans were defined as middle class, and in 1991 it dropped down to 56%, and it continues to fall to this day. So things are getting worse in the West and better in the Philippines. So that might be one reason to come here. But if you come here, don't plan on anything. I saw another blogger there. He pointed out, he says, 5 brutal truths. Number 1 was have a plan. Well, let me tell you, he spent like 2 months here. Forget about your plans. Your plans will be all thrown to the wind. In the Philippines, they don't plan for anything. You go into a CR and a comfort room and use the toilet, and the water bucket will be empty. I'm the guy who always fills it up before I leave. If you'll be driving along the road and you'll see some guy pushing his motorbike because he decided to skip the last gas station. That happens a lot. And they'll constantly forget things like economizing on groceries over the long term. I guess they figure they could be dead tomorrow because they tend to buy small portions. I'm talking about the poor. The middle class are wise to this, but the poor, they'll buy these small little packets, not realizing they're paying more by volume by buying these little mini packets. And you'll see that when you drive along the road. It's reams and reams of little packages hanging over the sari stores and places like that. So yeah, they don't buy in bulk because they don't plan for the future. But the one thing they'll always remember is to party. The Filipinos, they love to party. And if you're invited to a Filipino's household, be sure to bring along some food. It would be shocking to them for you to do otherwise. So there's some of my tips. I neither promote nor detract from the Philippine experience. I don't want to see this society really change that much because they're pretty good the way they are. And if a whole lot of foreigners come in and change the culture, that would be a real tragedy. So God bless the Philippines, and I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please hit that like button, and if you didn't, share it with a friend and ask their opinion. Maybe they'll tell you you're wrong. And you should subscribe to my channel. he recently achieved monetization, although I haven't really gone on to that to register or do the paperwork for it, but that was not the intent of this exercise. It was more to record my experiences here and share them with friends and family. But the let's finish off with Barry J. Briggs, who's started a channel a little while ago, and he had these 5 items that she mentioned. Have a plan. I say forget it. I mean, of course, you got a plan to get here and account for visas and all the rest of it, but don't count on anybody else abiding by your plan. So be ready to have that all tossed to the wind. And then he mentions the heat. Well, the cooler months here in Cebu are actually January and February, and it's warmer in April and May. So, as a midwinter vacation spot, it's really nice for those coming here. So, but if you arrive late after spring break, it could be hot. And the weather here, it's always unpredictable, but it can change in an instant. It's a typical tropical situation where you'll have a deluge of rain and then it'll stop altogether. He also mentioned his item number 4 was brownouts. It depends on where you are. We have very few in Cebu. I started building a solar panel array here. I set up the foundation for it, and I have no real drive to rush ahead and get it done, but because we simply very rarely have brownouts here. And the last thing he did mention, and I'll agree with completely, is don't be closed off. If you come here, come with an open mind and open yourself up to people, and you'll find that there's some amazing new friends you're going to find. And they won't be other expats. In fact, I have a little rule about expats. Over time, I've noticed that few last longer than 7 years here, so there's no real point in cultivating a relationship with an expat here. And I've stated as much before. The Filipinos will still be here, but the expats, they can go home, or they can change their route. They can run off to Thailand or somewhere else. Don't forget, they've traveled to one country for a reason, and they may leave for the same reason. So I don't hitch my wagon onto any other expats' dreams, goals, or adventures. And I've always been a lone wolf, so don't be sending me invitations to join your club. Because as Groucho Marx once said, I would never want to be a member of a club that would have somebody like me as a member. So with that, I'll leave it with you, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, and let me know how you would like to see this channel go. I'll continue the construction videos weekly till we're done, but it looks like we'll be all finished in 4 weeks. And then what do I do? We do also have a rental that's a 2-bedroom townhouse unit here in Cebu. So if you're looking to stay in Cebu for longer term, I think a neighbor of mine is going to be taking it over for a couple of months for January, February, but he's not committed to it yet. So if you're interested, it's 18,000 pesos a month, includes Wi-Fi and a motorcycle usage. So there you go. And I pay the maintenance fees, and you pay the water and hydro. So that's it. And thank you for dropping by. Hope to hear from you in the comments section. And thank you again to all you guys. You give me some great material to deal with over time, and that's what ends up making the direction of this channel and its potential success. So thanks again, and we'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.